All right, welcome to this next video. Let's be honest, first two levels were pretty disappointing, resulted in poor looking shots. This is the level where it all starts to at least change slightly, because one of the biggest differences now is that we will be using our prime lens. Okay, I'm just going to be talking about in some moments from now which exact prime lens am I going to be using and why do we exactly use a prime lens, especially in food photography. Okay, we are still going to be using a reflector definitely to fill in shadows. One of the big changes now comes in the settings. We are obviously going to be using manual mode because we have this prime lens. That will allow us to do a lot of things with, first of all, the aperture, okay? And secondly, also the shutter speed, as you're going to find out. That's going to make a massive difference. Also, just the very fact that a prime lens is just more sharper, it produces a better contrast than a kit lens will make sure that all these points will make sure that the shot is better. Again, as far as the props are concerned right now, I'm just going to keep things almost the same. So minimal props. Again, we will still be using a natural light so that you'd see the difference, okay, between level 1 and level 3 when we change certain things. Because from the next level onwards is the time that we are going to say goodbye to natural light and things are really going to kick on in this course, because we will start to get into artificial lighting. So it's the last level for this window-based lighting. Also, this time, we're going to introduce something which we've not done before. At the very least, we're just going to spend a few seconds on our editing just to improve the shot that we get inside level 3. So enough talking, let's get inside level 3 and let's take the shot. Alright, so the prime lens that I will be using for this shot is the very popular 35mm f1.8 lens, and I'm using a Nikon camera, so I'm using it, but this comes for every brand. And this is a great lens for food photography, very popular lens, because both the things go in the favor of the photographer. And those two things are, first of all, you have a wide, slightly wide enough focal length, okay, because I'm going to also be talking at the end of this video about another very important prime lens, which is the 50mm or the Nifty 50, okay, that is used a lot for food photography. Also, I'm going to be talking about the difference between the two after we have taken this shot and analyzed our shot, okay. But right now, 35mm is a good focal length to slightly get a wider looking shot, which is sometimes needed in food photography to cover all the aspects of the shot that you're shooting. Secondly, of course, the same with any prime lens, this goes up till f1.8, just like the Nifty 50, which means we're going to get a nice blurred background. We're going to save a lot of light, which will help us save on the ISO and the noise. And therefore, and obviously, being a prime lens, this is going to result in a sharp looking shot. So that's why we use a prime lens. Like I said, towards the end of the video, I will just briefly tell you which one to choose between 35 and 50mm, though both choices cannot go wrong. But first of all, let's take this shot. All right, welcome to the level 3 shot. So as discussed, almost everything is the same here. The main change here is that we have changed the lens here from the kit lens to the 35mm f1.8 lens, which is going to make such a massive difference. As you can actually already probably see in front of your eyes, you must not be able to see it absolutely because this part here is pretty dark right now, but I've not corrected the exposure. I'm going to do it in front of you so that you learn that also. But basically, we're going to get a nice blurred background behind. Even in such a short distance, those beans will be blurred out thanks to this little thing here which says f1.8. This makes all the difference. Rest of the setup is same. I've got the reflector in the correct position. Right now, the shot appears to be a bit dark, and you can actually see that from the light meter. So we are now on the manual mode. Okay, so we have to make sure everything is correct. There is nobody out there to help us like in the automatic mode. So you can see here the light meter is telling me right now that according to these settings, I'm slightly, according to the light that I have around me in the environment here, this shot is going to come a bit underexposed. And we can actually see that from our eye also, right? Now, here is the big question. So this is the reason why we use a tripod, okay? Because if I didn't have a tripod, I probably would not be able to decrease or rather make my shutter speed any slower than, let's say, around 1/40, 1/50. Why? Because I would have been shooting handheld, and if you take handheld shots with a very slow shutter speed, that means the shutter opens and closes very slowly, then that means that the light will not enter the camera uniformly, and that is what produces what we call as a camera handshake, okay? Therefore, if that was the case, if I was shooting handheld, in this case, what I would have had to do is, I would have basically just had to increase my ISO like this till the time it comes in the center, the light meter. Okay, now in this case, it's fine because it only raised my ISO to 500. And one of the reasons why we are saving so much light is because we're using a f1.8 lens. So remember, the wider the aperture is, not only do you get a more blurred background, but you also get more light in the camera, which saves up a lot of ISO. But the question is, and before I move forward, I should also point out, if you want to learn these settings properly in detail, do check out my course called DSLR Photography for Beginners, where of course I dive into all this in great detail and from scratch. Okay, here I'm assuming at least you have certain knowledge about things. Okay, now here the best part is I really don't have to save any light from ISO. So here, in order to save light, I don't really even have to use ISO 500. What I can do is I can first of all take my ISO down absolutely to 100. Okay, this is obviously going to underexpose my shot, but then why can I just absolutely decrease my shutter speed or make it slower? Because obviously in food photography, just like landscape photography, we don't really worry about the shutter speed because nothing is moving in the scene. And we are also not moving because we are on the tripod, right? So I'm just basically going to keep making my shutter speed slower till the time. So actually, just have to make a little change. I use this camera a lot for my video shooting, so I just have to switch off the movie settings here. You don't have to worry about that. That's something as a course maker, I face this often. Just a small task. So now you can see here that I can actually go beyond 1/30 or rather slower than 1/30, and you can see that up till 1/8. When I go to 1/8 shutter speed, that is 1/8 of a second, and you can see here that now the meter is in the center. I don't even actually mind, and I sometimes like to do that when the subject is a bit dark. For example, this is telling me, the meter in the center is telling me that the shot is of the correct exposure. But when I have a dark subject like this, which is like the beans in this case, okay, I like to sometimes just overexpose a bit. Okay, so I don't even mind actually just crossing and increasing by one stop of light like this. So at 1/4 of a second, I feel it is correct. The exposure, I'm getting a good brightness on the greens. Also, now is the time that you can actually see the effect of f1.8. Can't you just look at this area here? Okay, of course, I'll be showing you this shot in the laptop also, but this is already giving us a beautiful looking bokeh. The overall shot is looking pretty decent for at least the initial level shots where we literally did not have anything except for a mug and coffee. Right now, all I'm left to do is, ideally I should be using a remote for this so that there's no shake at all of the camera, but just to make things quick here, just gonna take a normal shot. And what we're gonna do now is that we're gonna go back inside and just have a look at this particular shot. So let's do that.